Every morning, I slipped into my worn navy blue uniform like armor. 15 years of the same routine, the same unnoticed footsteps echoing through the cold marble halls of Pinnacle Enterprises. My name is Emily Carter, and for a decade and a half, I was the invisible thread holding this corporate giant's floor spotless, yet never seen by those who strutted past me in their tailored suits and polished shoes. The executives, with their clipped conversations and urgent strides, never glanced my way. To them, I was nothing more than background noise, a ghost in the gleaming skyscraper of Chicago's financial district. I pushed my mop and bucket through those towering glass doors every day, watching the city's skyline flicker in the early dawn light, feeling the weight of invisibility press down on me. But inside, beneath the grime of floors and the bleach scent of my uniform, a fire simmered quietly, waiting. I saw the smiles that never reached eyes, the power plays behind closed doors, and the ruthless ambition that cloaked itself in expensive cologne. The whispers, the harsh orders barked from glass offices high above, the way good people were brushed aside without a second thought. All of it etched into my memory like the stains I scrubbed away. They never knew my name, never asked who I was beneath the janitor's cap and gloves. But I was there, watching, listening, collecting pieces of a puzzle no one else cared to see. This was my world, the one I had quietly endured, until the day something inside me shifted, and I realized the one who was invisible had been the most powerful all along. That morning started like any other, the hum of fluorescent lights and distant chatter filling the vast lobby as I pushed my cart, mop dripping steadily onto the polished floor. Then he appeared. Richard Hayes, the CEO, swaggering in with his usual entourage, his laugh sharp and dripping with arrogance. His eyes locked onto the spill near the elevator, a careless mess, likely one of his privileged staff's doing. But instead of calling a subordinate, his gaze snapped to me. "Clean that up, old lady," he sneered, voice loud enough for the entire lobby to hear. Time seemed to freeze as heads turned, eyes darting between him and me. The laughter that followed was cruel, echoing off the marble walls like a taunt, sealing my humiliation in a public cage. My face burned with shame, heat flooding through me like wildfire, but my hands stayed steady, gripping the mop as if it were a lifeline. I wanted to shout, to fight back, to unleash all the years of pent up frustration, but the weight of years kept my voice locked away. Instead, I swallowed the sting, lowered my gaze, and carried on, an obedient ghost in my own story. But beneath that quiet submission, something fierce was stirring. That moment, that single cutting insult, cracked something open inside me, a promise whispered in the silence after the laughter faded. They thought they had broken me, but instead they awakened a storm. The janitor, the invisible woman they mocked, would no longer be their punchline. I wouldn't just clean their messes anymore. I was going to make them pay for every sneer, every dismissive glance. The air still felt heavy with Richard's laughter long after he walked away. But in that heaviness, I found a spark. From that day on, the mop in my hands was no longer just a tool. It was the beginning of a reckoning. Few people knew the truth about me, that beneath this uniform and beneath years of quiet labor, I held a secret that could topple giants. 15 years ago, my Uncle Robert, a shrewd investor with a heart bigger than his fortune, passed away and left me something extraordinary: a substantial stake in Pinnacle Enterprises. Shares that whispered power, influence, and the chance to rewrite my story. I never flaunted it, never spoke a word. Instead, I watched silently as Richard Hayes transformed the company into his personal playground, his greed spilling over in lavish yachts and ruthless layoffs. Good people, janitors, assistants, folks just trying to make a living, were discarded like broken tools, sacrificed to pad his profits. The irony was bitter. While he wielded authority from his corner office, laughing and barking orders, I was the unseen shareholder holding the keys to his empire's fate. My shares were my ace in the hole, my quiet rebellion hidden beneath years of mopping floors and wiping away the messes left by his recklessness. Each day, as I scrubbed and swept, I gathered evidence, noting every lie, every shredded paper he tried to erase from the record. This wasn't just about money or power. It was about justice for the people he trampled underfoot, about reclaiming dignity for the invisible workers who made the company run. The secret I carried was both my shield and my sword. No longer would I be the janitor who watched silently. I was the silent owner, the shadow with a stake in the company's soul, ready to step out of the darkness and claim what was rightfully mine and theirs. The moment was coming, the reckoning long overdue. And when it did, Richard Hayes would realize that the woman he mocked was the one holding the power to bring him down. One evening, under the dim glow of a neon diner sign far from the polished towers of Pinnacle Enterprises, I met Michael Reed, my oldest friend and the sharpest lawyer I knew. The world outside bustled with oblivious crowds. But inside that greasy spoon, we huddled over plates of fries, whispers carrying the weight of what I was about to reveal. I laid it all bare. The ruthless layoffs, the shredded documents, the poisoned atmosphere Richard had fostered like a disease spreading through the company's veins. Michael's eyes narrowed, his mind racing as he digested every detail. Emily, he said quietly, but with unshakable conviction, you're not just a janitor. You're the majority shareholder. You have the power to stop this, to end Richard's reign. His words hit me like a lightning bolt. For years, I had been quietly amassing evidence. Photos of shredded financial reports stuffed into my cart, emails exposing illegal cutbacks, whispers captured in secret messages. Michael grinned, a glint of determination in his eyes. We hit him where it hurts, at the shareholders' meeting. We expose everything, and we take control. The plan began to crystallize in my mind, each piece falling into place like the final moves of a chess game. I would walk into that boardroom, not as the invisible cleaning lady, but as the rightful owner, armed with truth and justice. There was a thrill mixed with nerves, knowing the fight ahead would be fierce, knowing Richard wouldn't go down without a battle. But with Michael by my side and the truth on my side, I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. The silent observer was ready to become a force to be reckoned with. The time for waiting was over. Nights became my secret battleground. While the city outside glittered with lights and the hum of late-night traffic, I slipped quietly into empty offices, cart rolling softly behind me, heart pounding with a mix of fear and fierce determination. I scoured through trash bins for discarded emails, captured screenshots of shredded documents before they vanished forever, and pieced together a puzzle of lies and greed that Richard Hayes desperately tried to bury. The silence of those towering halls was deafening, broken only by the whisper of paper and the soft tap of my fingers on the keyboard as I printed evidence that would one day expose the truth. I heard Richard's voice, sharp and cruel, over a phone call, laughing about squeezing out every last cent from the little people, those who cleaned the floors I once swept, who typed reports I'd seen shredded without mercy. The sting of betrayal fueled me, turning exhaustion into relentless resolve. Every late-night run through the company's secrets was a step closer to justice, each photo and document a weapon sharpened in shadows. I was no longer just the janitor invisible to them. I was the silent storm gathering strength. The weight of the mop in my hands shifted. It became a symbol, not of submission, but of uprising. Though the hours grew long and the risk grew higher, I couldn't stop. The evidence was my shield and my sword, and I knew the day would come when I'd wield it not in silence, but with the force to change everything. That night, alone in my cramped apartment, the city's distant hum barely reaching my ears, I sat staring at the mountain of documents Michael had meticulously organized. Every forged report, every illegal layoff, every incriminating email was spread out before me in stark black and white, a damning tapestry of Richard Hayes' deceit. My uniform hung on the chair nearby, still faintly smelling of bleach and hard work, a ghost of the life I was ready to leave behind. I traced my fingers over the papers, feeling the weight of years of injustice pressing down, but beneath that weight surged a fierce pride. This was more than a fight for power. It was a reckoning for every soul Richard had crushed beneath his greed. The clock ticked past midnight, but I couldn't sleep. Thoughts raced. The faces of coworkers pushed out, the laughter of Richard echoing in those glossy boardrooms, the countless nights spent scrubbing floors invisible to the world. Tomorrow, I would walk back into Pinnacle Enterprises, mop in hand, but no longer as the invisible janitor. I was armed with truth, with proof, with the power to shake the foundations of the empire Richard had built on lies. I whispered a promise to myself. This time, they would listen. This time, I would be seen. The dawn was still hours away, but in that quiet solitude, I felt the first real stirrings of victory, tense, fragile, but utterly unstoppable. The morning of the shareholders' meeting arrived with a crisp chill in the air. But I walked into Pinnacle Enterprises with steady steps and a heart pounding with quiet confidence. My mop bucket rattled softly against the marble floor as I navigated the familiar halls, dressed in the same uniform that had once made me invisible. The boardroom buzzed with anticipation. Suits gathered like a sea of power. And Richard Hayes sat smugly at the head of the table, radiating arrogance as if the company were his personal kingdom. I waited just outside the door, gripping my cart until Michael's text blinked on my phone. Now. Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the heavy doors and stepped into the room. Every head turned sharply. Richard's mocking snort cut through the silence. What's she doing here? Get back to your mop, Emily. His words, dripping with disdain, were meant to send me back to invisibility. But this time, I didn't flinch. I stepped forward, meeting the room's stunned silence, and declared, I'm not just the cleaning lady. I own this company. A hush fell as I slammed the folder of evidence on the table. Falsified reports, emails exposing his cruel layoffs, shred financial documents painstakingly gathered. Faces went pale as Michael entered, papers in hand, confirming my majority shareholder status and the votes to oust Richard. His jaw clenched, disbelief flashing across his face as I cut him off. You're fired, effective immediately. Whispers erupted, tension crackling in the air. Richard's fury was palpable. Red-faced, fists clenched, he hissed, "This isn't over," before storming out like a cornered beast. I stayed calm, turning to the boardroom with quiet authority. Today, we change. No more layoffs for profit. No more treating people like disposable. This company belongs to all of us. The stunned nods and tentative applause grew louder. This was the moment I was finally seen, finally heard, and the empire Richard built was crumbling beneath the weight of truth. The atmosphere at Pinnacle Enterprises shifted like a breeze, turning the tide. No longer did I walk those halls cloaked in invisibility. Now, heads turned with something new: respect, curiosity, even a hint of admiration. The uniform was gone, replaced by jeans and a simple sweater, yet the weight I carried was lighter than ever. In the break room, the cleaning crew gathered around me, their faces bright with smiles that hadn't been seen in years. Emily, you actually did it, one of them said, handing me a steaming cup of coffee. The same kind we used to fight over when resources were scarce. I laughed, the sound feeling foreign but freeing. Sitting in Richard's old office, the same view stretching out behind me, I signed the first round of raises for the crew, implementing ethical policies that felt like a breath of fresh air in a suffocating space. The power was no longer about yachts or profits. It was about people. Word spread fast. My inbox flooded with messages from former colleagues, journalists, and even strangers inspired by the quiet janitor who dared to rise. One email stood out, a heartfelt note from Jack, a janitor laid off years ago for simply asking for a sick day. "You gave us our dignity back," he wrote. Tears pricked at my eyes as I read it again and again. Walking through the halls, I noticed genuine smiles, small nods of acknowledgement, and even a kid from accounting calling me a legend. I shrugged off the praise with a smile, but inside I felt 10 feet tall. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about all of us who had been invisible, overlooked, and underestimated. For the first time in years, I wasn't just cleaning floors. I was helping build a future where every voice mattered. The hardest part wasn't the battle against Richard. It was creating a world where people finally felt seen. Richard Hayes didn't disappear quietly. A month after losing everything, I caught wind of him ranting on some late-night cable show, his voice dripping with bitterness as he called me a sneaky janitor who stole his empire. I rolled my eyes, barely concealing a smirk. Then the host dropped the bombshell, a security clip showing Richard in a meltdown, trashing his own office like a man unraveling. The footage spread like wildfire across social media, turning him into a laughingstock overnight. Memes exploded, mocking his tantrum, and former allies hastily distanced themselves, abandoning the sinking ship he once commanded. Karma wasn't finished with him yet. His accounts were frozen, his yacht seized, and the man who had ruled with an iron fist was left broken and exposed. I watched from afar as his carefully constructed world crumbled faster than anyone could have imagined. It was strange, this feeling of quiet satisfaction. Not revenge, but justice served cold. People who had suffered under his reign began to breathe easier, their stories finally validated. The man who once wielded power through fear was now powerless himself, a cautionary tale whispered in boardrooms and break rooms alike. I had no desire to revel in his downfall, but witnessing the collapse of such arrogance was a reminder of the cost of cruelty. As I moved forward, rebuilding and healing, I knew the real victory wasn't just in ousting Richard, it was in creating a space where respect and dignity were the new currency. And though his name faded into obscurity, the lessons of his fall echoed loudly, a testament to the unstoppable force of truth when wielded by those once deemed invisible. A year later, Pinnacle Enterprises felt like a different world. The sterile halls that once echoed with whispers of fear now buzzed with genuine laughter and conversation. I wasn't just a visitor in my own company, I was its leader, shaping it with hands that once scrubbed floors. The cleaning crew received fair wages, their requests for better hours and protective gear finally met, thanks to open doors and honest dialogue. On my desk sat a framed note, the first suggestion ever written in the break room: more coffee, please. It was a small reminder of where we'd started and how far we'd come. Richard Hayes was a distant memory, rumored to be selling condos in some forgotten town, his empire shattered and his name tarnished beyond repair. I wasn't a hero. I was just a woman who had grown tired of being invisible and decided to fight back. If my story taught anything, it was this: power isn't always in the flashy suits or the corner offices. Sometimes it's quietly held by those who refuse to stay silent. I looked out at the city skyline from my office window, the same view that once belonged to Richard, but now it belonged to all of us: workers, dreamers, and believers. I smiled, knowing that if I could rise from mop to CEO, anyone could find their strength to stand up and be seen. And as I sent out another email welcoming new voices and fresh ideas, I wondered, where will karma strike next?